Alright, good morning guys. Today we're going to be doing a little more work on the Miata air suspension. The main objective for today are a couple of things. First off, we got to figure out where we're going to mount this relay. We're going to have to run this to the battery, run all the air lines throughout the car, and we need to wire up this compressor. We're also going to need to tap into some power on the fuse box for the compressor and for the gauge face. After looking around the trunk for a bit, we found a place to put this relay. We're gonna put it on the inside of this carpet here. So it'll be tucked back here. Got it kind of temporarily screwed in right here. You can see on the back side it's a relay. Wire is running straight down, and then it'll come out down here. We'll be able to attach to the battery, and then we'll have to run a ground. So we gotta run this from the positive side of the positive terminal of the battery. It's gonna run through this big ass fuse, and that's the end. So this end will actually be connected to the relay that's tucked behind here. Also, don't roast me too much on all this electrical stuff because I really don't know what I'm talking about. So thankfully I have my uncle out here helping me, or else I would not be able to get this done. So since we had to cut this wire right here, originally it was super long, but we just cut it to the length we needed. And now we're gonna be stripping off that coating, whatever you wanna call it, and applying a new terminal, if it'll focus. Whatever. We're putting a new terminal on the end so that we could hook it up to the relay. So we got our terminal on and plugged into the new connector here. This is gonna end up being plugged into the relay in the spot that I showed you. So one wire done, 3 to go. So the next thing we need to plug into the relay is gonna be the power off this compressor. So we got the power line right here, and then we got the ground right here. We're gonna have to take this, this power and run it along the underside of this panel to the relay. And as you can see, this is not quite long enough to do that. So we basically have to make an extension. So right now, my uncle's over here putting a new terminal onto some wire. And we're gonna make a connector here and make it long enough to reach the relay. So now that we got the terminal on the end of this extension wire that we made for the compressor, got it in some conduit, we got it all run behind here now, comes out right here, and this is gonna connect to the compressor, and then we have the ground that is gonna run to this hole that we drilled right here. Next up, I found a place to ground the relay. We took the spare and the jack out. This is now open, so we're gonna use the existing threads here to thread in a ground. I also got the Dremel out here. I'm gonna Dremel off some of the paint around here so the ring terminal has a nice place to sit and some good connectivity. After a quick Dremel, got the paint off there, allowed the ring terminal to just sit right over the top like that. Jumping ahead, we now have the ground all tightened down, got the conduit over top, and then run up behind here to go to that relay. One of our last wires is gonna be from the pressure switch to the relay. Then off the pressure switch, there's gonna be another line that's running to the front of the car. I jumped ahead a little bit because watching me wire stuff is probably not all that fun. We ended up routing the pressure switch wire from the trunk through the car, up into the dash, and then over to the fuse box. While we did that, we also measured and ran the air lines that need to go up to the front of the car as well. Not all the way to the front wheels quite yet, but we routed the ones that are gonna come from the tank up to the switches in the glove box. So I'll show you where all those lines are right now. So back here in the trunk, you'll see this is our pressure switch wire. It's blue and white. And then we got our air lines over here that are coming off the tank. And these all shoot down this cubby right here. And that takes you inside the car where you saw in my last video that I already stripped the interior. Here's the other side here. We got all 3 lines, the 2 air lines and the pressure switch wire coming out of this whole existing kind of gap in the parcel shelf and between that and the roll bar. Already went ahead and took out this door sill plastic and that allowed me to undo the carpet. So we're basically gonna run it underneath the carpet along this existing line right here, all the way to the front of the car, and it's gonna come out at the top of this this carpet right here. And then this is the glove box right here. It's not in right now, but that's where the switches will be. And then you can see the smaller wire. This is the pressure switch wire right here, is being run through a slot. It's kind of hard to see, but through a slot right here that goes right through the center of the car. And that takes us around to the driver's side. And this line is gonna be run into the fuse box, which is gonna be right there. So we've definitely made some progress. Still have to run power from the fuse box to the gauge pressure switch for the light in the gauge. And then we also need to ground that same gauge light. And then as far as the air lines are concerned, we still have to tee off on both ends and go to the front wheels and the rear wheels. So we're getting there, definitely making some progress, getting excited. I ended up pulling this pressure switch wire out of that little pocket that I was talking about before, because my uncle said he thinks that's the heat and air conditioning vent. So I'm actually gonna run this wire just slightly in front of it, which is right behind the stereo. There's plenty of room back there too. And that way this wire is not subjected to extra heat or cold. So what I'm working on right now is the power from the fuse box to the gauge face light. So in order to get power from the fuse to the gauge face light, we got this fuse tap off of Amazon. Apparently this brand right here, if it'll focus, it's called Lumison. This is like a smaller one, and apparently this is the only one that will work in the Miata that's kind of small enough to fit. So we got this. We used a butt connector to attach to this wire, which we're then gonna run the same spot as the pressure switch wire that I showed you across to the gauge faces, and then we'll be using connectors from there. But for now, that's what we're doing. There's the wire we were just working on with the fuse tap on the end here. That's routed under the dash, through the center here, and then over to this side where the glove box is gonna be. All right, the last thing we're gonna work on for tonight is finding a place to ground the wire for the pressure gauge light, whatever it's freaking called. So we actually found it right here. Behind the glove box, you can see this thing right here. So we're just gonna go ahead and bolt a ring terminal to this, and that should ground that light. We officially found a spot to ground it, so it's coming off this bolt right here. Got some conduit on there, and then my uncle attached this connector onto the end, thankfully. And then on the back side of my gauge panel that I made here, we have the ground wire right there. So you'll be able to connect these two together, and then this will be sitting in the glove box. So should be pretty sick. All right guys, it is now the next morning. My intentions were to move on with the wiring. There was a couple things we had to tie up. This morning I was gonna check on those fuse taps, make sure those work. Spoiler alert, they do not. They are the wrong size, so that kind of puts the wiring on a halt for today. We got some new ones on order. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. I'll catch you on the next one where we will be installing the air struts. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flippity flop. Peace.